Induction. Behold, the gremlin developed into a wolf resurrecting from evil. Induction. Detailing analysis of induction. Before we go into analytical details of induction, one needs to identify and define induction and its roots. What is induction and what is the source of induction? Induction is a form of mental energy generated from the mind. And since it is energy, then what applies to energy and its dynamics basically would apply to induction. This mental energy is generated by electromagnetic impulses existing in brains. Therefore, it is wise to explore the laws of electromagnetism in an initiating attempt to explore induction in analysis and definition. An induction of an idea is actually an implanting of an idea into the mind, and yes, there is a positive and a negative induction. Positive induction is based upon strong logic and elicits reasoning, and to be successful in exchange one needs to create a positive state of mind and broker a conclusive solution to an existing problem or an arising situation. Negative induction focuses on the same rules that apply to positive induction. For example, all Jews I interacted with are stingy. All Jews are stingy. All Arabs I met are terrorists. All Arabs are terrorists. Though the phrasing is very similar, yet the conclusion it leads to vastly differs. This contrast of the latter is a form of induction, and in this case it's a negative induction, since it leads to inaccurate and misleading conclusion. In origin, the term induction was first used by E. Herring and C.S. Sherrington, and in definition, induction is reciprocal, excitation leading to increased inhibition and inhibition leading to increased excitation. The latter stands for a phase of positive induction, while excitation leading to increased inhibition would be the negative induction. Such early experimentations were not intended to study human mind and behavior, but I personally see a great benefit in extracting the similarities of induction, whether it is related to energy, renewable bioenergy, or mental frequency, which is another form of energy, as everything in existence. In experiment 1, 24 rats were trained on a multiple variable interval schedule with a door light and white noise serving as component cues. Two groups were later shifted to a multiple extinction variable interval schedule, while maintaining a third group on a multiple variable interval schedules. The multiple extinction variable interval condition produced positive contrast when either light or noise signaled extinction, and both of these cues acquired inhibitory stimulus control as measured by a combined cue test. In experiment 2, the multiple variable interval condition was shifted to multiple extinction variable intervals for one group, to multiple variable time variable intervals for a second group, and was unchanged for the third group. The two experimental conditions produced identical patterns of response rate reduction in the altered component, but the multiple extinction variable interval condition produced positive contrast, whereas the multiple variable time variable interval condition did not. Subsequent combined cue and resistance to reinforcement tests revealed that the cue signaling extinction acquired stronger inhibitory stimulus control than the cue signaling variable time. Above quotes are from a Gutman article. Experiment on squirrel monkeys. In experiment 1, lever pressing by squirrel monkeys was maintained under a sequence of variable interval, multiple variable intervals, and multiple variable interval extinction schedules of food presentation. Negative induction decreased responding in the unchanged component occurred when one component of the multiple variable interval schedules was changed to extinction. Negative induction was transient over sessions. Responding in the unchanged component usually recovered to a rate similar to that under the multiple variable interval schedules. Negative induction was not accompanied by consistent changes in the patterns of local responding within the unchanged component, and did not depend on whether component schedules were associated with localized lever lights or diffuse visual stimuli house lights, or on whether the unchanged component was a 60 or 180 sec variable interval schedule. In experiment 2, responding was maintained under a sequence of variable interval and multiple variable interval timeout schedules of food presentation. Negative induction occurred when responding declined gradually in the timeout component, but not when responding declined abruptly. The nature of interactions in multiple schedules may depend on the species. Negative induction was observed with squirrel monkeys under conditions similar to those that produce positive contrast with pigeons. Quoted from Rhodes-Spielman article. Having observed an alteration or an influence on responses in species else than human, I am certain that the same would apply to humans. Implanting induction is by importing alien brain frequencies, or in another phrase, mind manipulation. That is why we started this article with the warning of the gremlin becoming a wolf that resurrects from evil induction. A superior mind can easily manipulate a lesser counterpart, and there seems to be a number of talented minds who are experts in evil induction practices. The art of induction is ancient, and holy books and religions were the first to recognize its influence and danger on human minds. And since it is a form of mind manipulation, it was an advantage used by superior minds to take advantage of those inferior in an unlawful gains. Once a superior mind recognizes the opportunity opening and gets used to the easy gains and benefits obtainable by making use of it, one's behavior becomes almost addictive, and taking advantages of the less advantageous becomes a habit and an ordinary pattern of behavior. And that is why one needs to pay extra attention to what's spread through all sorts of media tools and vehicles, and watch out for the bad influence it may leave upon immature minds such as children and teenagers. Induction of the worst kind. The worst kind of induction is usually generating from individuals suffering from obsession. Obsessed individuals tend to base their induction on their personal perception of events and issues, personalizing their conclusion regardless of how truthful or twisted the facts they rely on to weave their induction upon. Many of the victims to such induction usually children, and many of the sources of that induction usually obsessed parents. For a reason or another, obsessed parents tend to manipulate children in an adornment without being aware that they are injecting venoms in sweets prior to offering it to their children. But the severity of such behavior lies in the fact that most parent practitioners of induction are not even aware of their actions and its damaging influence on children. Indeed, there is much that needs to be researched by behavioral scientists to reach a satisfactory conclusion in defining all sorts of inductions and its influence on people. We are still at the beginning, and we hope to see more serious steps taken from the scientific community to serve our personal improvement and self-development in the future to come.